As music producers and home studio musicians, most of the time we're pretty deep in the weeds of technical exercise. We're working with technology, right? Digital audio workstations, sample libraries, audio interfaces, mics, and a whole host of other pieces of software that have to all work together to create music. But for just 1 second, I want you to stop being so technical. Like, really think about what our role is. What I want to do in this video is help you see that being a producer is not just knowing what EQ is, how to use it, or how to record properly, or any of that stuff. To be honest with you, that's kind of child's play. If you're stuck on how to use EQ, then you're focusing on a game that is very surface level. You gotta go deeper. And going deeper doesn't require any technical knowledge of how EQ or compressors or any of this stuff works. Being a producer is not just taking a song and fully producing it or adding in production. I want you to realize what our role really is. If you're like me, then you're composing, writing, arranging, building tension, release, and all of that. I want us to stop and think like creatives for a moment, because I think it'll help shine light on what we really need to focus on as producers. I've noticed in my own private community for my Program Producer Accelerator that sometimes the producers who are making the most moving music are not making the most polished music or the most perfect productions from a technical standpoint. See, we as producers are still artists. Not like musical artists in the sense of like what you hear on Spotify or artists building an artist's career, but artisans, craftsmen. We are creatives who also work within the confines of technology and technical skills, but we are creatives. We have a job of taking an idea and turning it into pure magic for a listener. Stop and think about that for a moment. It is our job to make magic happen. I started my career making music for film. I was writing for commercials and other short films, and I can tell you that films without music lack emotion. It's really weird to watch, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I remember giving a presentation when I was in college where I actually showed a short film I scored. I showed the entire film with no music. It was like 8 minutes long. And at the end I asked, how many of you feel really uncomfortable right now? And everyone raised their hand. That's the power of music. Because without it, films lack emotion and depth. Without it, we're stuck to just using words to explain things when we all know that music can touch our soul in ways that words just simply can't. Yet you're concerned about how to use a compressor or EQ. Don't get me wrong, those are important things, but in almost 15 years of producing music and over 20 years of writing it, I can tell you with absolute certainty that many technically proficient producers still do not make music that moves the soul. They know how to use EQ, they know how to record vocals and all of this, but they have yet to learn how to move the emotions. As a producer, I am much like an artist with a canvas, except the canvas is my DAW and the timeline. And the color palettes are the sounds that I choose to use. And these sounds happen in time rather than in a snapshot. Visual art, like painting, it's a snapshot, but music is in time. It's this dance. It's finite. It only lasts for a few moments before it changes again. It evolves and manipulates over the course of a few minutes, whereas a painting, it stands still. As a producer, I am painting with sound. My colors are the instruments and the individual strokes of how I choose to use them. The painting of a musical composition is intricate, it's complex. There are moving parts, there's motion, transition, there's rhythm, there's timbre, lyrics, voices, instruments. Stop thinking about the technicality of technology and think about the intricacy of performance, for example. Like, performance is permanent when we record it. We can't change it, which means we need to make it count. That performance is a stroke of the brush on the canvas of time, and if it's not treated with care and finesse, then it won't move the listener. We get so concerned about, is the gain set at the right level? Or is there enough reverb on this vocal? Or am I using the right microphone? When so often producers don't even stop to work on how a vocalist performs their part to get it exactly where it needs to be. Is the performance truly moving? Is it capturing the emotion of the lyrics? Is it supported with good breath support? Is it the proper timbre for what that song and arrangement calls for? Should it be more breathy or more confident and belted? When you can step outside of your box of technicality and into the realm of artistry and realizing that every choice you make is another stroke on the canvas, I think you'll start to realize that making music is more than just pressing record and getting enough takes. When I think about making music, I feel like every song I make is a miracle. Like, think about what music actually is, just like scientifically. It's sonic vibrations that objects make, like voices and instruments that we then capture or have already been captured, that we now wield control over, and we use these vibrations in time by changing the speed of the vibrations to alter the pitch, which alters how they feel, and we then layer all of these vibrations together to make chords and melodies, and somehow all of that comes together in a way that can sometimes make you smile and sometimes make you cry, and other times, like honestly, you can't even describe how it makes you feel, but somehow your mind and soul knows what it is, but you can't even put words to how it actually feels. So all you can do is just listen again and feel it again. Like, think about that. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that magical? And you're still worried about the technology? As I mature as a musician, as a composer, producer, I find myself so much less concerned about the technology and more concerned about the canvas and the colors. I don't know, maybe it's just the maturity that I can even focus on these things in the first place, like maybe just the experience and the time that I've spent doing it. But like, music has a way of helping us cope with heartache, but it can also celebrate when the times are good. Like for example, when I was in high school, most of my songs were honestly pretty sad, because I had a really difficult time in high school. I was different because I went to a pretty athletic school where I was the musician who did show choir and musicals and choir and jazz band. So I wasn't exactly the cool kid. Like, I felt lonely for most of high school. And that period of time led me to write songs of deep feeling and emotion that honestly helped me kind of sort out my own feelings. And music was also there when I experienced the birth of my first child and went through a week of hell, because I spent my wife's delivery wondering if either my wife or my son would live because of complications. But we're worried about compression. Like, let me tell you something. The magic of music doesn't get unlocked by a compressor or an EQ. Like, compression and EQ can only accentuate the music that already has magic in it. So many producers are cocky about how much they know about the technology, while simultaneously they're making music that is not moving. They're making music that does not possess magic. What would happen if the next time you open your DAW, you stopped being so technical and instead you focused on being an artisan? You open your DAW, you look at it, and you see an empty canvas. You see every sound and instrument you choose as a palette of color. You see every note, every chord, every beautiful vibration that you can manipulate in time to create something magical. I think our music would be better for it. Making music is more than just turning and twisting knobs. It's more than knowing tips and tricks. Making music is about knowing how to paint with the colors of sound on the canvas of our imagination.